What's up, everyone? My name's Tyler. You're watching Mom's Basement MMA, and joining me on the program, a very special guest. Her name's Maya Stewart, and she trains at Kaizen MMA, and she joins me right now ahead of her next fight at Fury FC 103. Maya, welcome to the program. It's been a couple years since we've done one of these. Good to see you again.
I know, right? It's good to be back.
There has been so much that's been going on in your MMA career since we last spoke. And I feel for somebody like you do the old Tapology scrub on you, and it's like, wow, we see only a relatively low amount of fights, but like you have experienced so much over these past few years. You've been on losing streaks, you've been on a crazy winning streak now. Can you just kind of like tell me, when you pan out and like think about your MMA journey over the past couple of years, like what are some of the biggest themes that kind of stand out in your mind?
Oh my God. So, first of all, the biggest thing that stood out to me in my career was that transition from amateur to pro. And I had a lot of success as an amateur, but you have to think about it. Like when I was coming up in the amateur scene, MMA was still evolving. It was still relatively young, especially for women. So when I was coming up, skill levels were, if you're looking at opponents, if you're looking at the talent pool for women, skill level was everywhere. It's it was very difficult finding opponents sometimes, and then at other times you just get a whole bunch of offers all at once. You know what I mean? So it's just very just sporadic the way things panned out. But yeah, I went on my 5-on-5-1 streak as an amateur, and but one thing that really like stunted my growth was my lack of wrestling skills. So as I trained in my amateur years, it was just striking and jiu-jitsu. And I train all the different disciplines separately, but I never really had a good gym that made this cohesive, program where you're learning everything at once as MMA. You know what I mean? So 2019, I finally got to Kaizen MMA, and my head coach there, Nima Mazzari, he's looking at my footage and he's like, "Oh yeah, you have good striking, you have good jiu-jitsu, you have no wrestling." And I'm just like, "Oh, is that important?" And you know what? One thing that really happened that changed the MMA game was like people like Khabib Nurmagomedov and people coming up like that who really made people notice that, hey, you have to know how to wrestle. And
Absolutely.
yeah, that was the time I was coming up and making that transition from amateur to pro. And one thing I noticed was all the offers I got were these high level jiu-jitsu girls. And then, in my head, I'm just like, oh, I actually need to develop this part of my game or else I won't be successful. Um, so here we go. I make my pro debut, and it's against a girl. She was a judo expert. I think she was a black belt in judo, and she had good jiu-jitsu. And it was a horrible fight. Like, it was a boring fight.
Mhm.
Because you know what? I was afraid that she would get too close and take me down. So I was just playing really just safe and
Mhm.
not throwing enough strikes, and she won on points. You know what I mean? And that's how my pro debut went. And at the same time, I was also training like an amateur. And one thing that people like don't realize, there's a big difference between training like an amateur and training like a pro. Um, of course, I have a day job, but my coach, after I lost my second pro fight, and let me tell you something. After I lost my second pro fight, I literally went to my managers and my coaches and I said I quit fighting, like I'm retired, and I
Mhm.
was so serious about it. But they encouraged me to keep going, and my coach came to me and he was like, "You have to train twice a day, most days of the week." And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do that with work. I have to pay rent. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And eventually, I was able to adjust my schedule so that I could um, get the two sessions a day in, and that was a huge game changer for me. And that happened what the beginning of 2024.
Hmm.
And since the beginning of 2024, I've been on my winning streak, just changing the way that I train. Um, Not just my schedule, but even like my training partners. I stopped sparring altogether in 2024. I don't spar anymore. So like I made so many changes to my game, and that's really what has prompted my current success as of now. So
Well, it's really interesting that you mentioned about wrestling being like a weakness, because when I think of Kaizen MMA, I think of like a lot of fighters that are there that are actually amazing wrestlers. Is there like a predominant training partner that you had that like you found was like absolutely instrumental to beefing up your wrestling skills?
I do. I don't know. I don't know if I want to say it because I don't want people to know my game now. But this particular wrestler, he he comes from a different wrestling style that most people don't practice too much. And that's literally just been a game changer because like I most people do freestyle,
Hmm.
and I I found that I'm drawn towards certain techniques. So that wrestler that I'm referring to, like he's really shown me a whole bunch of things that work into my game that complement my striking.
Well, I see you out there now, Maya, and I see a. I've always seen a talented fighter, but I feel like you just look a lot more composed. It seems like you're a lot more comfortable in the cage, and you're really ready to take this fight, kind of wherever it happens to be. Can you talk to me about the Tim's fight for NFC 162? That was your first professional victory, and let's be real, like they brought you in because they thought you were going to lose to this girl and you didn't. You flipped the script. Can you tell me like like when did you know like everything was going to click, and like when did you start feeling like, you know what, like I have it again, like I have something, no one else saw it in me but I knew I had it in me? Like when did you start feeling super confident? Was it that fight?
Yeah, it was I just needed a win. You know what I mean? Sometimes like you'll train and you'll do what you're supposed to, and then if you go in the cage and you lose, you're like, it's really hard on you mentally, But after getting that win, I was like, yeah, I can really do it. And I was confident that the changes that I made to my training were leading me in the right direction. And I continued to add on to that. And that's really what helped me. Leading up to that fight, I I usually make, actually, that's not true. Before I didn't make game plans that were as detailed as I make them now. So before the Krista Timms fight, I had a very detailed game plan. If this doesn't work, here's plan B. If this doesn't work, this is plan C. I said I'm only gonna throw straight shots. I'm only gonna throw them low. I'm gonna stand low. I'm gonna lean over so that she won't get my hips. And the biggest factor that in that success was actually practicing the game plan every single day. When I shadow box, it was the game plan. When I worked with my teammates, whether it's morning or night, it was the game plan. So it was really etched in my mind. And when I went out there to actually fight, I was able to do what I needed to do without even thinking. So
Another really interesting thing about the women's bantamweight division is I feel in a lot of ways it's like feast or famine, in the sense where like there could be a huge variance in terms of like the skill level of your opponents from fight to fight. And in your case, every single one of your opponents in like your professional MMA career, like they've either had way more experience than you, or like they're super difficult matchups. And like when I go through and I look at like who you've been beating, who you've been going up in the cage against, and who you've been getting success off of, it's like these are high level opponents. And like, can you just tell me, like, when you're seeing some of these names come in, you know, you 35ers, you guys kind of know who everyone is, and you're seeing these names, and you're just kind of like, oh my gosh, like I'm here we go. I'm going out there in search of my second or third win, and this is like the name that they give me. Does that like fire you up, knowing that you have like these big challenges ahead of you?
it's motivating because I it gives me a sneak peek into the level that I need to be at. So, sometimes they'll present these girls to me and it's like Olympic judo champion and like ADCC champion and stuff like that. And it's like okay, it's a no for now, but I know in my mind, okay, this is what I'm preparing for. You know what I mean? And then some of the toughest girls I've had, one, it's funny because you look at their footage and like you're like, oh, I can beat them just fine. But the toughest girl I've had is probably Kelsey DeSantis.
Hmm.
And the reason she was so tough is because she was a true featherweight. She was big.
Right.
I don't know if you watched her versus Clarissa Shields,
Hmm.
where they fought at 165. Yeah, she she was heavy, and I was like, yeah, this is a true featherweight, and it also got me thinking about a transition to bantamweight after that fight. And it was always a conversation, but it was just I wasn't ready for bantamweight at the time, so yeah, I fought some tough girls.
Yeah, you absolutely have. And in your most recent fight, you went up against another really high level opponent, Rebecca Evans. Like, I looked at this fight, I saw that the bout had got announced, and I was like, I IM'd you shortly after that, and I was just like, that's a tough fight. And you're just like, yeah, I know, I'm excited for it. And like, can you just tell me, like, looking at that opponent, looking at the challenge that Rebecca Evans posed, like, you looked at this fight and you took it because you're like, I see something that nobody else sees. What was it that you saw? What was it about that fight that you knew you were going to come out on top?
Now I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to answer it truthfully. I'm going to tell you why.
Let's
So
go.
any anytime an opponent comes across to me, anytime they present someone to me, I don't care about the record. I don't care if they're 100-0. I don't care if they're 0-100. What I look at is I look at their footage and I look at their style and I say, okay, where am I compared to their skill level? And when I assessed Becca's skill sets, I knew that I was more skilled in every single area. So
Mhm.
I said, okay, this is a fight I'll take, and I'm confident that I'll win it. And yeah, that's how it went. That's how it went.
And if you don't mind me asking, like, well, I think of you, Maya. I think of somebody who's, and we kind of covered some of this ground earlier in the interview. It was like, I think of somebody who strikes. I think of somebody who throws a lot of kicks. Somebody who's really comfortable with the boxing. You win this fight in a way that I really was not expecting. You showed me some things that I hadn't seen from you. Was that the plan, to attack her with the submission right away, or did the fight just kind of like go there unexpectedly for you?
Yeah, so I have my game plan, and the game plan was to strike and corner her up against the cage. But the ninja choke is one of my best chokes. I actually get it all the time in training. I go immediately. I choke people with it. So it was written down as one of the possible submissions in my game plan based on how she would enter for the single leg. So it was something that I had in the back of my mind, but I didn't go out there and say, "Oh, I'm gonna put a ninja choke on her." It wasn't the plan. It
As, as
wasn't
soon
the
as you
main plan.
as soon as you slapped it on her, though, did you know the fight was over?
Absolutely. So the thing is, what I noticed when I was sinking in the choke, I was like, she does not recognize the choke. So one thing that happens often, whenever you get someone's neck and it's a guillotine, you can usually finish the takedown as long as you land cross body. You're okay. You're safe from the guillotine, right? That cannot be done with the ninja choke. So this is the guillotine. You're pulling this up on their neck, and then this is a ninja choke.
Hmm.
So you have this arm trapping their head from coming up, from posturing up, right? They can't treat the ninja choke the same way that they do with the guillotine. If you feel that it's not a regular guillotine, you have to abandon whatever it is that you're doing right away and address your head, posture up, and make sure that top hand doesn't get on the back of your neck. She did not recognize it at all. I felt it and I saw that she didn't recognize it. So I said, "Oh, let me just let me keep going. I've got this." You know what I mean? And then I turned her against the cage to get my hips in a little more, and I knew it was over from there.
Here we go. You have to be feeling like even more supremely confident ahead of the Yontef fight, because it's not like you went to war for 15 minutes. You got her out of there, in and out of here. That was like probably the best case scenario for you, beating Evans the way in which you did.
I keep saying it like that was literally the best case scenario. I took no damage and I was able to get right back to training after. So it was great.
The one thing about Kayla Yontef, I don't know a whole lot about her, but I do know that she's been at Jackson Wink previously. I know that she has very, very high level training partners just like you, but she's been away from the game for a while. And I look at her record, it's 1-2 record, probably not the most flattering record out there, but records can be deceiving, as we well know. High level training partners. I think she's a very talented fighter. I think she's had a lot of success in the past. And I look at her and I look at you. I put your record up on one screen, her record up on the other. I see a lot of similarities between you guys. Do you feel that way too?
Yeah, I don't care about the record. I've looked at her opponents. She's fought quality opponents. Veronica Smolkova is now 5-2, and she's fought quality opponents herself. And then I think Riley,
Martinez?
Riley Martinez, yeah, she's what 4-0 now. So it's not like she's losing the scrubs. She's faced some tough girls and she lost to them, and that's just how it is sometimes, you know. So that means Kayla Yontef is skilled, and I honestly think that she will be my toughest fight to date. So
I completely agree. I think she's very skilled. I think she's very, very talented. And for you, it's got to be like another layer of excitement because you look at it and it's like you have the opportunity to go up against a really high level 35er. And when you look at her game, you look at yours, I'm sure you're feeling like really confident. I won't ask you what it is that's making you feel so confident, but when you look at this matchup, do you feel kind of similarly about Yontef as you do Evans? Like you look at it and you're like, I think I'm better everywhere.
um I feel confident.
Hmm.
And you know, when I go out and win, it'll be very beneficial for my mental health because I'll know that I can go up against the best of the best girls that are out there, and I think it'll give me a lot more confidence. Yeah.
I think it's a really good opportunity for you. Fury FC, I mean, you're talking about like one of the like premier MMA organizations in the country. And can you tell me, Maya, like what's been your experience like being a part of this promotion? This will be your second fight with them. Uh, that's kind of cool because you're like getting like a really big stage that not everyone gets a chance to compete on.
Yeah, so this started with the Olivia Bearley fight, and I ended up signing a 4-fight deal with them um at that time, and I will say that I've had a fantastic experience with Fury so far. Eric is really transparent and he's cool and he's always looking out for the fighters. So I'm really happy being with them.
Well, I'm really happy that I get an opportunity to see you compete again March 23rd, 2025. It's coming up right around the corner, less than a month from now, 30 days out. How are you feeling and how primed are you for this fight? Everything's on schedule. You're good to go?
Everything's on schedule. I just came back from training. I feel great. Uh, I just feel amazing. So I'm really excited. I can't wait to eat after this fight.
Hey, well, I think you've deserved it, right? Because essentially preparing for two bouts simultaneously, you're talking about like one giant fight camp. So, that's a great question for you. What's going to be that first meal come March 24th, I guess?
It's gonna be steak. It's gonna be shrimp. It's gonna be. I don't know why I always crave lobster rolls, but
Okay. Well, you know what?
lobster rolls and boba.
And maybe maybe a beer too. Maybe. I'm just saying. Maybe. I think maybe you might have deserved one.
A ginger beer. A
We'll
root
go
beer.
with that. That's good. That's good enough. That's good enough. Well, number one, Maya, I appreciate your time as always. And before I let you go, I wanted to actually give you an opportunity. If there's anyone out there that you'd like to thank or shout out before I let you go, let's do it.
Yeah, I want to shout out all my teammates and coaches at Kaizen MMA. My management has been amazing to me. Fury FC, thanks, Eric. Um, yeah, that's just all my supporters on Instagram and in person. Thank you.